Welcome to Richplanet TV. I'm Richard D. Hall. I'd like to welcome back Neil Sanders onto the show. Welcome back, Neil.
Thank you, Richard.
Now then, last week we discussed your book called Your Thoughts Are Not Your Own, or your two books. One which covers mind control, or the nuts and bolts of mind control, and the other one is all about the media and films and music and that kind of thing.
Personal and mass.
I haven't read all of them, Neil, but I've read parts of them, and I've read the chapter on hypnosis, or the CIA's investigations into hypnosis as to what it can be used for.
Yep.
And it's pretty disturbing, folks. I just want to read this part here. It's talking about, this is in 1954, is it George Easterbrook's?
Yeah, George Easterbrook's, yeah.
He said that I will take a number of men, so he's a hypnotist, and...
Yeah, well, he was an established hypnotist, a psychiatric hypnotist who was in the field of medicine, but basically he seemed to be so good at it and so lacking in scruples that he made a series of proposals to the CIA. The CIA says, all right, if you can do what you say you do, bring it on, let's see what we can do.
This is one of his proposals. I will take a number of men and will establish in them, through the use of hypnosis, the condition of split personality. Consciously, they will be ardent communists, fanatical adherents to the party line. Unconsciously, they will be loyal Americans, determined to thwart the communists at every turn. These men will have no knowledge of ever having been hypnotized, and can only be hypnotized by such persons as the original operator may choose. Consciously, they will associate with the communists and learn all their plans. Once every month, they, as loyal Americans, will tell what they know. This sounds unbelievable, but I assure you it will work. So what he's saying is, it's possible to make someone seem like a completely different person who has different goals and is following a different agenda to what they really are, and they're not even aware that they're doing that.
The one that immediately springs to mind is Lee Harvey Oswald, who at times was anti-Russian, pro-Russian, anti-Castro, pro-Castro, CIA, anti-CIA, anti-American, pro-American, and at the same time was seemingly able to go between America and Russia and back and receive money for it.
Well, the people that spring to my mind, Neil, are people in the truth movement.
Well, yeah, that is certainly possible.
People, not everyone. Now, and also Raoul Moat, who I gave a talk about a few weeks ago, and I'm still trying to find out information specifically about PC David Rathband and his relationship with Lisa French. So if anyone has any information, please contact me. But yeah, you were going to make a comment because you were quite interested in the Paul Gascoigne.
Yeah, I thought that you picked that up really, really well, because essentially it was when Paul Gascoigne was saying, "Oh, I know this guy," and then he woke up the next day and he didn't know the guy. And I think that he very possibly did know the guy. I think
yeah,
but not as Paul Gascoigne.
Well, I worked something out actually. Let me think. I think Gaza has said that when he played for Newcastle, he used to see him on the doors in the town. When Gaza played for Newcastle, Raoul Moat was 15. So he couldn't have been a doorman in the town.
Well, the thing is, right, I mean, this is highly speculative, okay, but you could make the argument that there are the distinct personalities in Paul Gascoigne's head. Okay, so where's the evidence of this? Well, there's 2 points. I don't know if anyone's seen the footage of Paul Gascoigne basically saying that he's been asked to take the Pope to play darts.
Yeah. Now, you sent me a link to this, but this appeared on, it was at the Daily Mirror website.
Yeah,
it was one of the mainstream newspapers. So it's
rags.
Someone who speaks to Paul Gascoigne in a pub, and he's secretly filming Paul Gascoigne in the pub, and he's pissed.
Yeah.
And he's rambling on.
Yeah, but this is not an isolated incident. Like, apparently, there was a documentary I saw a few years ago of his home life, living with his ex-wife, whose name escapes me. And apparently he used to do all sorts of things, like he used to hide Bibles in the fridge and be obsessed with the number 13 and constantly think that the Queen and the President and all these various people were trying to get in contact with him, and basically he had missions to do and such.
Well, a lot of people watching this, Neil, will say, well, I went in to see Newcastle United when he first started playing, and he's daft as a brush from day one. So
yeah, I don't doubt that.
So I
don't think he's an assassin. I don't think he's a spy. I don't think he's useful for that.
But you think he's been messed with?
Yeah, I do. And here's the reason why. And again, most people will go, nonsense. What's the point of, what is the function of sport? Right, the function of sport is amusement focus, as Zbigniew Brzezinski would call it. Okay, what it is, it's bread and circuses. It's getting the masses all into one thing that's really not that important, and then splitting them down into teams so that they can argue and fight with each other. H.G. Wells in the Coming Conspiracy, or I forget exactly, I think it's called the Coming Conspiracy, wrote about this, and this was a few decades ago, and basically he was saying on a Saturday afternoon what we'll do is we'll get these people, we'll dress them up in brightly coloured uniforms, and we'll get grown men in teams to play sport against each other. And at the time it was like, well, that's ridiculous, nobody do that. Sport is for children, football is for children. At the time this was the thought. Now we have nothing but amusement focus. We have television shows, serials, sitcoms with people like Charlie Sheen going off the rails,
dancing on shite.
Oh, exactly, and all this rubbish. And what's the best way to maintain that? Okay, is to occasionally mess with somebody so that they've got the ability to perform incredibly well at sport. And that sounds, people say, why would they do that? Look at the huge amounts of money in the industry and the way that you can control people through sporting heroes.
I was looking at a clip of somebody called Jackie Milburn the other day, who was a Newcastle United legend, when he was talking about Gaza when he was a teenager, saying this kid is a world beater, and he would say, and he'll even tell you that.
I think it's about 35 years since I've seen a kid as good as what this lad is, and I just can't believe the skills of him. He's got everything. And his skills is absolutely unbelievable. Sticks out a mile, and he'll tell you so as well, you know. Because
he's a confident lad.
Oh, confident. He's like Malcolm MacDonald. I think whether it's confidence or they've got to say things to give themselves confidence, I don't know. But last year we were struggling in the first division and could have been relegated, and Gaza was missing for a few weeks. And after one game he says, "Oh, all right, Jack," he says, "I'm back next week, we're safe." And mine we were, because we did very well the last 8 or 9 games. But it was him that kept us in the first division. He's the best in the world, honestly, the best in the world.
So do
you know how
if you go by what you're saying, they would have had to have messed with him from childhood.
Yeah, very probably. You know how Tiger Woods got to be as good as he is? His dad hired an ex-army drill sergeant from the United States Marines to shout at him every time he got it wrong.
Right.
To me, just to me, that sounds like trauma-based mind control with the military.
Yeah. Right, so Tiger Woods' dad got this military guy to shout at him.
Yeah.
The other person who springs to mind when you talk about Tiger Woods having some kind of assistance, or some people think he's genetically engineered. The other person is Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, well, very possibly. I mean, the thing about Lewis Hamilton,
they're these sort of perfect model people.
Well, I mean, certainly the thing about Lewis Hamilton and certain other sporting people is this concept that they're working class heroes, which is just not true.
See, people watching this, Neil, will be thinking, these guys are mad, right? But if you parallel it with musicians, right, and consider what the mind-controlled various musicians, anyone who's a problem, like Lennon and all of these people, Bob Marley or whoever, who weren't on the line or dealt with, and the ones that they want to give the right message, they control either through mind control or whatever means.
Well, here's an interesting one.
But sports people are just as influential, certain sports people, than music people.
In fact.
So you can understand why they would want control of their views.
It's your leisure time. It's your leisure time. Okay, when you're not at work, you're doing other stuff. So they need to control you whilst you're doing that other stuff. It's interesting you say that about like put people in the public that can be brought down. There's a comedian called Cat Williams. Cat Williams, very, very good, very, very talented black American comedian. He recently, basically like just a few days ago, announced his retirement from stand-up comedy. Right, what's interesting about this is anyone that sort of vaguely knows Cat Williams will go, "Oh, Cat Williams, he's on cocaine, like he's a drug addict." Of course he's gone off the rails. He's been arrested 20 times in the past month. Well, here's the thing. About 2 years ago, when he just started getting really big, he did a stand-up show, and I think it's called Pimpin's Pimpin'. But basically in that he's talked about, I've not been famous for very long, and it's blowing my mind. I'm going to mansion parties, like well-known celebrities are inviting me to mansion parties. I'm turning up at these ones, right, okay? I'm looking in the wrong room and I'm seeing celebrities that I know, black celebrities, you know, macho celebrities, people who he's got a very, very sort of established idea of their image, kissing and having sex and doing drugs openly in front of him. He says that basically you go to a meeting in Hollywood and the CEO will go, well, yeah, Kat, by the way, what we want you to do for this movie is... And his joke is, well, can you not see me? I'm here, I'm here. When he was doing this, Professor Griff, who was a member of the hip-hop group Public Enemy, he's been vilified for lots of stuff, mostly for telling the truth and for some slightly unfortunate comments that he made. But he was saying at the time, Cat Williams, watch your back. Within 2 years, they will destroy you, okay? The first thing that happened to Cat Williams was he kept getting pulled over by the police all the time, and they would destroy all his equipment, thus causing him to cancel gigs and stuff like that. Spurious charges, spurious charges, spurious charges. Then he gets onto drugs. Now people will basically go, oh, that's his own fault. COINTELPRO, one of the key fundamental elements of the COINTELPRO, which was the FBI counterintelligence program, which was, we talked about the Rolling Stones previously, that's come out that was a COINTELPRO program. So what were they doing? They were using LSD, Orange Sunshine LSD, which is the CIA's own brand, to demonize the Rolling Stones. Right. They're using cocaine to demonize Cat Williams. They use crack to demonize Afeni Shakur, one of the most prominent members of the Black Panther 21.
Right. They demonized Charlie Sheen.
Yeah, absolutely. By
because he was talking about 9/11.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you know, last time we were talking about Tupac Shakur and the intimate connections with Death Row Records and the CIA. CIA ran Death Row Records, financed Death Row Records. Death Row Records was run by Harry O, who was dealing with the Medellin, cocaine importation. Guess who Cat Williams hired for his security in the last couple of weeks of his tour? Suge Knight, Marion Suge Knight, who was the owner of Death Row Records. Bad move, Cat.
Right. All right, Neil. Well, the other thing that we're going to talk about today is the CIA's control over the media. You highlighted a document written by a chap called Carl Bernstein.
Yeah, Carl Bernstein. Carl Bernstein. People may know Bernstein. It was.
So if people want to Google this article,
the Watergate,
the CIA and the media by Carl Bernstein.
Right. The interesting thing about this is that he'd already exposed the Watergate scandal with his partner Bob Woodward. Bob Woodward, I'll come on to in a second. Woodward and Bernstein, they were played in, I think it's All the President's Men by Dustin Hoffman and Robert Redford. So, very famous journalist. He investigated the CIA's influence on the general media, and discovered that essentially the CIA owns and embeds reporters in all these different things.
Yeah, it's
despite being like one of the most sort of prestigious journalists of his time. That was published in Rolling Stone magazine, which is a music magazine, because no other publication would carry it.
It's a big article with a lot of detail, and it just explains how there are all different shades of grey of types of agent embedded in the media. So you've got your person who's just a CIA agent, 100% working for the CIA, being paid for them, who's also working for a newspaper or whatever. But you've got all the way up to maybe someone who's just an asset, who doesn't even know they're being used by the CIA and certainly isn't being paid by the CIA. And then you've got other shades in between where you might have people who just take the odd payment for doing the odd favour. Some people who are providing information to the CIA or presenting stories in a certain fashion for free, just because it's sort of their ego, hey, I'm a secret agent type of thing. But it's absolutely, this is 1977, this article, absolutely rife that in America all the news media is completely in the pocket of the CIA.
One of the quotes that comes out of that was basically that we don't need to approach individual people anymore, really. We don't need to bribe individual journalists, because we have members of the CIA on the board. Certain ABC and CNN have both been exposed as notorious focal points for Pentagon psychological operations. At one point during the Yugoslavia conflict, the CNN had over 1,500 people embedded at CNN's headquarters.
1,500.
Yeah, absolutely, and they were influential in directing the news, making news. When one of them was questioned, he was exposed by a Dutch newspaper called Trouw, and when one of them was exposed to saying, "Look, are you guys actually, influencing the news? Are you hiding facts? are you, you know, putting your stories forward? He says, well, I don't know, but I hope so, because that's what I'm paid to do.
Yeah, I heard something on Talk Sport. This is going back a while, and it was a journalist saying, well, I've worked in journalism for years, and these claims that MI5 or intelligence agents control the media is just absolutely ridiculous. I would know about it if that was going on.
Of course you would.
But the thing is, if every single person other than you is an agent, how would you know that they're not?
Well, you can read Spies, Lies and Whistleblowers, and I'll prove that the Guardian and the Telegraph are using people. Here's a right. I'll rebuttal that journalist. This is John Swinton, who's one of the most highly respected journalists in American history. Wait until he retired in 1953 and made this quote to the New York Press Club. He said, "There's no such thing at this date of the world's history in America as an independent press. You know it and I know it. There is not one of you who dares to write your honest opinions, and if you did, you know beforehand that it would never ever appear in print. I am paid weekly for keeping my honest opinions out of the paper I'm connected with. Others of you are paid similar salaries for similar things, and any of you would be foolish as to write honest opinions would be out on the streets looking for another job. If I allowed my honest opinions to appear in one issue of my paper before 24 hours, my occupation would be gone. The business of journalists is to destroy the truth, to lie outright, to pervert, to vilify, to fawn at the feet of mammon, and to sell his country and his race for his daily bread. You know it and I know it. And what folly is this, toasting an independent press? We are the tools of rich men behind the scenes. We are jumping jacks. They pull the strings and we dance. Our talents, our possibilities, and our lives are all the property of other men."
And a classic example of this, Richard, is I gave a presentation in Hebden Bridge, Yorkshire, just a few weeks after the events of 7/7. And it was one of the very first public presentations I gave looking at the deconstructing the events of 7/7 and demonstrating that the evidence that was in the public domain did not match the official narrative. And at the end of the evening, this gentleman came up to me, and I still have his business card, and he introduced himself, and he said that he agreed with everything I'd said, and in fact he shared with me some other information. And I looked at the business card, and it was a senior journalist with the Yorkshire Evening Post. And I said, well, this is great. I said, so when does your article appear? And he hung his head, shook his head, and he said, Ian, I wrote the article. He said, I submitted it to my editor, and my editor called me in and said, you know very well this can't go into print. If it goes into print, it'll be journalistic suicide. This is how the people within the mainstream media are effectively kept in line and kept in check.
We as journalists are intellectual prostitutes.
All right, and then we'll take a break, and in the break, I'm just going to go to the toilet.